Hello, everybody. Welcome. Well, here we are again. I guess it must be fate, and you are welcome that I didn't pull out my share invitation for that introduction, but just know in your minds that it's really good. Like my share is top notch. All right. Another summer has flown by, and we've reached the finale episode for Mediavine's 5th summer of live. Crazy. For those that are coming in, welcome. And we wanted to just quickly say before we got started, for those of you who have taken time out of your days to watch, whether that is live or by catching a replay, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being our audience. You are why we do what we do. Of course, we could not have a full summer of live pass us by without our guest for today making an appearance. You know him, you love him. It's Mediavine CEO and co-founder, Eric Hochberger. Eric, welcome back.
Thanks, Jenny. Has it been that long? I haven't been on.
It's definitely not been the whole summer. Yeah, you haven't been on this whole summer.
Oh man, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, of course we have you. We couldn't have a summer go by. We haven't had a single summer. It's been 5 summers and we haven't had one go by where you haven't been here. That would be crazy. Sarah, I don't know that I can bring out the share imitation. I don't know that I can do it. I think it's another time. But everyone knows who Eric is. We are going to be talking about everything that's going on in the industry today, things that are happening behind the scenes at Mediavine, and then doing a little bit of a sneak peek into what we have coming up for you guys in the latter quarter and a month that we have left of 2022, which is crazy. So let's check in with everybody out in the audience. Tell us, it's mid Q3 check-in time. How has 2022 been for your business so far this year? What goals have you accomplished for your site in Q1 and Q2 all the way through Q3? Tell us this is your license. This is your encouragement. It's more than a license. It's a request. Brag. Tell us how you've been doing so far this year. And Eric, let's start here. It has been another roller coaster of a year so far. No question about it, with everything from the global economy to Google moving the goalposts yet again for cookie apocalypse. So let's start out with an overview of key industry happenings that are impacting the ad industry and our publishers so far this year. And guys, before Eric jumps in with that, please know if you have questions for Eric, drop them into the comments and we will do our very best to get them to him during this hour. But first, give us a rundown, Eric, please.
Oh, everything that's happening. Well,
my asks are small.
We'll go global. Okay, we'll go
global.
Small.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah, obviously you already made mention, I think, of one of the biggest one, which is Google pushing back the end of third-party cookies. So hooray. Now it's going to be 2024 instead of being 2023. So hopefully everyone, you can sigh some big relief, but we still need to take actions now. But after we can do that sigh. There's a little bit happening in the US economy right now, and maybe even the global economy. I'm sure people have noticed a little bit of inflation, a little bit potentially of the US not looking as great for the economy. And I'm sure other countries are feeling similar, some of the effects. And we could talk about how that's going to be impacting ads over the next few years, the best we can predict it. And then, of course, there's obviously always changing laws with privacy, whether it's updates in the EU with GDPR, laws that have almost passed in the US, and those kind of changes. So it's so much, as always, happening. Why would this year be any different than previous years?
No, I think that what we were always a changeable industry to begin with, operating in the digital Wild West like we do. But I think that the last couple of years have sent us into a very different category of unprecedented. The other thing, we've also had just a lot of Google updates, including one that is coming right around the corner in just a couple of days. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
So as usual, I mean, I think most of our publishers are the type of content that Google is trying to reward with updates like this. Are you writing useful content for your readers is generally what almost every Google algorithm, despite its many names and core updates, are all geared around. So I don't want most Mediavine publishers that are creating original content and are trying to be helpful to the reader to be concerned about this upcoming new name change. So again, are we focused on what we should be doing, which is creating valuable content for the reader? If so, you are good to go.
Awesome. Okay. So everyone's talking about it, but really it's just a rebranding of the thing that we're all already doing, which is trying to create helpful content for the reader.
Right. Again, there's obviously a change coming with the helpful content update. I don't expect, everyone is going to see a difference in their rankings as they do with most of these updates. You might bump a few spots in some rankings, you might lose some. I mean, it's important to look at the overall trend. And remember, don't just compare yourself to what happened month over month, but what happened year over year, right? Because everything is cyclical, or everything is seasonal, I should say, for so many of us. So make sure you're comparing it to the right time period and see how much of this change came from just this update. And again, focus on creating valuable content for the reader, not creating content for search engines. I think that is what Google has always been all about. So just a different name, but the same thing that Google has always been trying to do with every one of their updates.
Very, very helpful. And another sigh of relief. As we have been talking a little bit about comparing the different time periods and using that as direct comparisons to make sure you're looking at the right data when you're trying to analyze your own performance. A thing that we also advise people to use that same principle for is looking at their own revenue for ads. However, that's been a little bit difficult comparing year over year based on all of the real craziness. And we usually put out our calendar, which shows the heat map, but it's been hard with the last few months. So I think, as we can't predict, there's no way we can. Instead, can we talk about some of the things that we have been working on and have behind the scenes that help keep our publishers' revenue more steady, even during these crazy, crazy periods?
Yeah, I think one of the best things we can all do is focus on our evergreen jewels, if you will, of things that will work throughout all of time, right? So the advice that Mediavine has been giving you for the last 6 years still applies today. And so focus on the variables that you can control, right? We cannot control the economy. Certainly Mediavine can't. You can't as an individual publisher. But what you can control is your content. How are you organizing your content? Are you optimizing it for revenue, as well as, when you go to optimize it for SEO? A lot of the same tricks you're going to have been using will still apply. Things that Mediavine has built over the last several years, things like the universal player, more recent additions like InView and Skylight are going to do great. Whether they're going to do as well as they would have done in a booming economy, no, but will they still do better than you would be doing without them during perhaps a recession? Then yes, I would say you should still be running all of the same optimizations we've been encouraging you to do. And don't focus on, maybe my RPM is down a couple percentage points, but instead focus on where your RPM would be if you weren't doing these things. So do what you can control, and that is controlling your own content, your own site.
So you threw out some terms there that I would like to investigate a little bit further. So universal player is something I hope all Mediavine publishers know about. But if there's anyone out there who doesn't, can you give us a quick, in a nutshell, what is universal player?
It's the easy money button. So you're going to want to run to your dashboard if you don't have that on. The universal player is basically video revenue for all. So it's the idea that you can run a player on every single page on your site, a video player, without even needing to create your own video content. So we call it the universal player because it works great for everyone, whether you have original video content and you're using a Mediavine video player or you're not. The universal player will back up the regular player. So we encourage you to do what we would call click to play, where you have videos when your readers actually want to watch the video content. And then the universal player is something that can play as soon as they arrive on the page. So it can make you more money. So the universal player, just think of it as video revenue on every single page view on your site. Most people that run it will make a significantly more money by running that than if they were to run a video player anywhere else. So if you're not running it, run it now under pretty much any circumstance.
And we talked about this. We actually had an episode last week where we talked a lot about this, the settings. So if you guys want to check that out, please, we will actually link to that in our helpful resources doc that'll come out later. But yes, universal player, there is zero reason not to run it. Is that accurate, Eric? Usually we mitigate, we talk about maybe this for this person. No, none, right?
No mitigation required with universal player running.
Okay. Now, InView. What is InView?
InView is a great way. So we had to build, as you guys probably are aware, there was a thing called the Core Web Vitals, or the page experience of the Google algorithm.
So 2021, Eric Hochberger.
I know, this was forever ago. We're going back in time. So we had to create basically settings optimized for what's called CLS, or cumulative layout shifter. As ads were loading in, was your content or was the page shifting around? And unfortunately they were for nearly every ad management company. We solved it by basically saying, this is the maximum amount of space an ad will take up. And therefore we reserve that space as soon as the page loads. So whether an ad loads or not, we have that space ready to go. What InView does is, if a smaller ad wins the auction, InView doesn't take up any more space. It just has that ad stick with the user as they scroll through that space we're already reserving. So it doesn't really change the user experience, but it vastly improves the viewability, especially of those smaller ad units. Because remember, we have to reserve the space of the biggest ad that could win that auction. But sometimes a smaller ad might win. And this gives that smaller ad basically a little tiny sticky experience for the reader. No disruption to any user metrics when we did testing on this. So you can check your Google Analytics, nothing happens to your session duration, to how many pages per session. So it's a great user experience by all the key metrics, while still improving your viewability significantly. And viewability is what determines your long-term earning potentials. So turn on InView on both desktop and mobile, get a boost in your viewability, and that will improve your RPM over time.
Okay, I'm going to recap what you said, just to make sure that I'm with you. Okay, so we're talking about in-content ads, which are the primary way that we monetize mobile content, which is the primary form of audience that the majority of Mediavine publishers have, and the majority of all lifestyle content creators have. Everyone's accessing your content on mobile. The primary way to monetize that content is using in-content ads. All InView is going to do is, instead of customizing the size of the box of those ads that appears, it's going to have one size. And then as the ad, whatever size the ad is, if it's a smaller ad, it will scroll down slightly with the reader as the reader moves through the content. Exactly.
So smaller ads inside that bigger ad box will stick with you as you scroll, improving viewability, making you more money. And it also should mention, it's not just in content, it's also recipe and feed ads are eligible for it as well. So if a lot of your money, if you're a food blogger or a craft or how-to, and a lot of your money comes from running a recipe card or a how-to card, you'll also benefit from this.
Okay, so another win-win. There's no reason not to do this.
Agreed. No disruption to user experience, while improving viewability and long-term earning potential. You should definitely enable this one.
No SEO knocks, none of it.
Nothing Mediavine builds is going to have an SEO knock, but
okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I just have to ask you the question so you say it. Like, I just have to make sure that you explain. Yeah. Okay. So go to your dashboard. If you don't have Universal Player, turn it on now. If you don't have InView, turn it on now. It's great question from a user. Is that something we turn on in the dashboard?
Yep. So InView is just a simple toggle you'll enable inside the dashboard. So real simple under ad settings.
We can also grab our blog posts and help docs for those that we will put into the helpful resources, so you guys have a map to do that. Okay, last thing you said, which, not gonna lie, sounded like a Bond villain. What is Skylight?
Very cool name. I agree.
Awesome
for the next Bond villain. All right, so let's talk about Skylight, because that is a little similar to InView. It's like the cousin of InView. Okay. Skylight will render a bigger ad inside of those same ad boxes that we're reserving in time, or the placeholder spots that we take at the very beginning of page load. But it's not, now we can take, instead of having a smaller ad that sticks with the user, we actually have a bigger ad that has this weird scrolling effect, or this parallax effect, as we nerds call it, as you're scrolling through the ad. And you'll get to basically see a larger ad not take up the full space of that larger ad, but take up the smaller space, and it kind of scrolls a little bit differently than the page. Something that I would recommend we put a link in and a GIF, because there's no better way to show that to our publishers than with a video showing it. Or wait, GIF, sorry, GIF, not to be confused with a GIF.
That's not what we call, that's not what you call that. It's a GIF. Okay, so what we're saying with this one is talking about that once again, all important mobile experience. If we have a really big ad, instead of having the person have to scroll to go all the way down like a billboard ad, instead we're going to have the same size window, and then we're going to be able to, that ad will be more of like a scrolling experience.
Yes. Perfect translation, as usual. Thank you, Jenny.
Well, no, I didn't say parallax or parallel.
That would be the translation. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I wasn't, it wasn't Eric level, but I did my best. Okay. Yep. People are chiming in. It is GIF with a G. It's not peanut butter, says fellow co-founder.
It is peanut butter. I realize this.
All right. Thank you for those. Now, let's go to the other thing that is definitely going to impact our industry whenever it happens. And even though the cookies are not happening now, that doesn't mean it's not still having major impact on everything that's going on in the industry as it is. All you have to do is open up any article, any website, any news site related, and there are cookie animations everywhere. So what is happening with them? And also, guys, is anyone else sick of talking about them yet? I'm just throwing that out there. Is anyone else tired of it? Just me? No. Okay. Cookies. What is going on?
I love cookies. So we can talk about cookies all the time.
All the time.
Even these kind of cookies. So yes, just because things were delayed does not mean, again, like I said, we can just wait an extra year. We'll certainly enjoy, I think, an extra year of revenue as publishers that might have otherwise been lower. And the reason why it would have been lower is because the industry was not prepared, which is why Google ultimately pushed things back another year. Google had made proposals, whether they were bird named like Flock, which did not end up basically passing the sniff test.
Didn't fly, Eric.
Terrible
Flock
name,
did
right?
not fly.
God, thank you for making the joke. So I think Flock was great in concept, and the idea, I'm not going to go into the technical parts of it because it doesn't matter. Flock's not happening. What we're seeing instead is topics. And topics is the idea of every single website on the internet gets assigned a topic. When a user browses a few of those topics, advertisers will be able to get access to just a few select topics about a reader and be able to show ads just in those topics. And again, is that going to be a full replacement for third-party cookies? No, which is why Google, even though they have topics, can't just be like, okay, 2023, we're shutting this off. Everything's going to be fine. So they had to push back because we're going to need more than just topics as a solution. Obviously, Mediavine has other solutions that we've worked on, but as an industry, we were not ready. But we're using this time as an industry, and as publishers, we should be using this time to get ready so that when things happen, there won't be a problem.
How do I get ready? What are the things that Mediavine is doing?
Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that Mediavine is doing behind the scenes, whether that's working with these various industry bodies. So working with places like Google, the W3C, IAB. I promise you, we have your backs as independent publishers to make sure that we are seen and heard when it comes to what these solutions look like. Because a lot of these solutions ultimately are created by the big guys, right? By the big publishers. And we want to make sure that these things also protect independent publishers. These are the industry-wide solutions. So that's things like I'm talking about with topics or things coming out of what's called the Privacy Sandbox, which is Google's proposed solutions to the W3C. That they still kept, the Privacy Sandbox, even though they got rid of it.
Okay, so topics is in the sandbox, basically.
Topics is in the sandbox, exactly.
Right. At least they're not calling it. They should have called it buckets. Come on. It was right there.
So close. So we have the industry solutions that I'm going to bundle under the Privacy Sandbox, and there's separate ones, which are what are called seller-defined audiences. And that's the idea of publisher first-party data. You hear us talking so much about first-party data, and we'll talk a little bit more about Grow, because there's no way I'm wearing this cool shirt without us talking about Grow, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah. But what are seller-defined audiences? So what those are is, now for the first time ever, we as publishers are going to create the audience segments that advertisers are used to buying against. So if you know things from like traditional advertising, whether it's television, whether it's print or magazine, advertisers have always wanted to buy against what they're going to call audiences. So whether it's women 18 to 34, or whether it's car enthusiasts, or shoe and running enthusiasts, whatever they're looking to target with their particular brand. So that's why a lot of times you just see some advertisers would flock to magazines that are more specific to, let's say, car and auto is where they want to go and invest to find those car enthusiasts.
If I'm a sofa, if I manufacture furniture, I want to go to an interior decorating magazine.
Perfect. Yep, exactly. And so on the web, the version of that was they would buy what are called third-party data or audiences. So big names in data, Oracle or their product BlueKai or Nielsen or whatever these are, they would create audience segments, and some third party would determine this person is looking to buy a car. You should go advertise anytime I see this third-party cookie basically on a site, go buy it. So those were always made by third parties, right? That's where the name third parties came from. So it wasn't the advertiser didn't come up with that. The publisher didn't. It was a third party.
There's whole companies out there that are creating these audiences for the advertiser to purchase based off of the cookies that are going away and also are kind of invasive and not privacy centric. Right.
And so now we're switching this, right? It's going to be what's called first party data, where the idea is the publisher is creating it. And that's where the name seller defined audiences comes from. We, as the seller, we're selling the inventory on the website, right? It's no longer going to be created by an advertiser. It's created by the seller in this model. So it's a seller defined audience. So same concept. Now it's going to be, you're really going to lean on most likely Mediavine, where you're at management company, to help you create these segments. And we're going to be able to do that because we represent over 9,000 domains, right? And if we create a relationship with a reader, or you create the relationship with a reader, and we're able to see them browse on your site. Let's say you have a food blog, and we can identify, hey, look, this is a vegan. And then suddenly they go to a car site, an advertiser might still be able to buy if they're looking at targeting vegans for their product. But the corollary then, if they visit that car site, and we were able to determine this is a person interested in buying a car, and then they came to your food site, they might get a car ad. And that's because Mediavine is able to create what are called seller-defined audiences. So that is one solution as well, which is that first-party data solution in which we can begin building audience segments. And that's very high-level overview of it because there's a lot of other complexities. How do you define these audiences? How do you get them to go across multiple sites?
Okay. So more privacy-centric way. No. I want to make sure that I'm getting it. So more privacy-centric. It's going to be partially related to the content on the site, correct? So based off of the fact that if you're visiting my site for exercise tips, we can potentially assume that you are interested in buying a Peloton, maybe. Ish, yeah. I mean, so it's going to be up to how every seller defines it. Like, will we define it as you went to one exercise page, or maybe you had to go to multiple exercise pages? Maybe you had to go to multiple exercise sites for Peloton to be interested in buying that ad. But yeah, overall, it's based upon the sites you've been browsing. That would be how we would build that profile. So the distinction is now that it's not these third-party companies, these extra companies. It is actually the companies with the inventory in their hands that are making it seller-defined audiences. Love it. Perfect.
Right.
Fantastic. This is a great question. We've got here. Will we be expecting a decrease in ad revenue because of the new setup with cookies, or is that still decided or unknown?
I mean, to some degree, it will still be a little unknown, right? There's a lot of things that are beyond Mediavine or your control. What continues to happen as regulations shift or are better defined? What happens as Google creates more of this privacy sandbox? That stuff will obviously be out of your control or even Mediavine's. And that part will be a little unpredictable. But what we can predict is what we're going to be able to control as publishers, which is, again, these seller-defined audiences. Things like your relationship with readers, which is where Grow is going to come so heavily into this conversation, I'm sure. But can you control that relationship with the reader, get them to consent to personalized ads, and therefore allow us to create seller-defined audiences or use third-party identifiers that we could geek out about, or authenticated traffic, as we call it a lot around here. If we can do that, you can actually make more money when third-party cookies go around. If a significant portion of your audience is agreeing to basically allowing you to serve personalized ads, you're going to make a lot of money, because across the general web, they're not going to be willing to agree to personalized ads, right? I think the best way I like to put it is, if you have an iPhone, you have probably seen the change where, I can't remember the iOS number, 14, whatever it was, when suddenly once you updated, every single app you logged into was like, do you want this app to track you? I have some bad news. Most people don't want to be tracked. Like 94% of people are like, no, that's a really creepy question to ask me. Don't track me. Yeah, pass, hard pass. And so you can look at the data. So if the general web, if it's going to look like that, most people are going to decline to be served personalized ads. But if you can establish a value exchange, which is the entire goal of Grow, can we convince the reader, hey, if you agree to us serving personalized ads in a far less creepy way than was done in the past, can we give you something in exchange for you agreeing to get personalized ads? And if we establish that relationship with enough of our readers, we're going to make more money, because most of the general web is not going to have this. So if you can have 10, 20% of your users agreeing to this, when most of the web would be hoping for 6%, you're going to be in much better shape. And advertisers are going to be looking for that audience wherever they can buy it.
Absolutely love that. And we are nearing the place where I'm going to ask you to take a step back to show off that shirt. But we just got a question in from a user. It said, isn't it possible to collect typical audience data from third-party cookies now and up to 2024 and use that data set, which should be typical for a website going forward?
Yeah, so that is the strategy actually of a lot of companies, which is build up as much first-party data as you can off of third-party. The problem with, and that will be great, right? For the first 3 months, 6 months, however long that lasts, we can absolutely do that. And in some ways, we are doing that with Grow today, because if you are using Grow in Chrome, right, and 2 sites are running Grow, you're actually logged into both automatically if they're running Grow. If they're running on Safari, where there are no third-party cookies, you'll see that a user will have to log back in. And so what happens when third-party cookies go away? If you have visited multiple sites in Grow, we may have already converted that to what's called first-party data, right? So that user will be logged in if they visited you during the era of third-party cookies. But that's very short, right? That period. So over 3 to 6 months, maybe they logged out of Grow and suddenly they're gone. Or maybe Google doesn't allow cookies to last as long as, or as maybe they do what Safari did, where cookies only last 1 week in that first-party context. Whatever it is, that will be a solution for, I think, the short term, and a lot of companies are banking on that. But long term, what Mediavine is preparing for is we got to think of the world when third-party cookies are gone forever. And what happens when a new user visits your site that you had no data about? It's really important that we don't just use that strategy. That is a temporary fix.
Thank you so much. And to be clear, that's a great question. There are what we keep emphasizing, and what brings it home for me, is that it's a multifaceted solution, because one thing is not going to be a silver bullet that cuts through and is going to make up for the fact that we're using privacy invasive third-party cookies right now. It's not going to be one thing. We have to use the seller-defined audiences. We have to work with the Google, everything that's happening in the privacy sandbox. We can use some of the data that we have for now and transfer it over. And then we also have, will you please take a quick step back and gesture to your, we also have a product called Grow, which we are going to talk about now, and that Mediavine has been investing really big in over the last couple of years. We've just recently opened it to the world, not just Mediavine publishers, but let's do it. We've done it about 80 times on this show, but it's never old. What is Grow, and why does it matter so much to Mediavine? And to
No matter how many
publishers.
times no matter how many times we do it, I'm still never going to give the perfect elevator pitch yet. But grow is the ability to, again, what we keep stressing so much on this talk is how can you create that relationship with your reader, a long-term relationship? How can you get your audience to not only want to stay on your site for longer, but come back? So grow is a suite of tools that you're going to be able to use as a publisher that's going to natively integrate with your site. So don't think of grow as a destination, but your site is the destination, and grow is here to help your users stay on your page longer and give them reasons to keep coming back.
Yes, grow it's like that glue. It brings people, it keeps them on your site, it keeps them clicking around, and then makes them want to come back another time. Okay, how do we do all of that?
Yeah, that's the easy part to say, is that the goal is to get users to come back. But the hard part is getting them to do so, right? Or honestly, getting a user who comes off of Pinterest, getting them to consume a second page view is already challenging enough, we all know, as publishers. But how do you create a relationship off someone who came off of Pinterest or off of Google or whatever other source that they're used to, right? Because their next instinct is going to be, let me go back to Pinterest to find my next recipe, or let me go back to Google to find the answer to my question. It's not necessarily, let me go back to this site that gave me the answer. And that is the sole goal of Grow, is to give you a suite of tools so you can try to see what works best for you to create that relationship with audiences. We can't create the relationship at Mediavine or with Grow. It's ultimately going to be your responsibility still as the publisher. And so that's why we give you as many tools as we can. So some of those tools will be things like related content, which is the easiest way to get a user to click to a second piece of content on your page. Recommended content, definitely not related.
Pause.
Yeah, pause. Actually, the better way is recommended. So the idea being, if they're consuming whatever the article is, we're going to give the best next article to present to that reader so that we can hopefully get you a second page view. And again, the idea being, okay, maybe this user will be more likely to have a long-term relationship with you if they see more than one article. And if they learn, if I log into Grow, I can get even more personalized recommended content. So that's just one feature. Obviously, I think the biggest one that people know Grow for is Spotlight Subscribe. And that is the idea of, let's help you grow your newsletter through a non-invasive experience, the Spotlight Subscribe, which we can talk a lot more about. And once you have someone in your newsletter, I think a lot of people already know that is one of the best ways in which you can own the relationship with your reader.
Super fan. They've gone from just being somebody that comes and bounces to being somebody that you can now totally control their experience or cater their experience. You can send them to the different, by having a welcome series, you can have them consuming your content in the way that you want them to, in the best way. You can put your best foot forward. And then you're getting more page views. You're getting more, there. I love it when the audience just makes it. What is Spotlight Subscribe?
Great question. Thank you. Thank you, audience. I really wish StreamYard would give me everybody's name. I just see Facebook user popping up there.
They have to, if they're watching from the group, they have to authenticate in there. We love you, Facebook user.
Yeah, thank you, Facebook user. No. So Spotlight Subscribe is basically a newsletter sign up that's going to be embedded within the content of your post. So it's not going to be a pop-up. It's instead going to be, as they're reading your post, we're going to insert basically a inline, what we'll call inline widget or subscribed form. So a place where they can enter the email address, their name, and agree to sign up for your newsletter, and ideally get served personalized ads. And as they're getting that experience, what we do is we spotlight that form. So we kind of put a little gray area around the outside of it, and that's lit up real bright and white. So that's where the name Spotlight Subscribe comes from. So it's putting a little spotlight on it. It's almost like a pop-up experience in that it calls attention to it, but it's great in that a user can scroll right past it. They don't have to exit out of anything. So no disruption to the user experience while still getting you close to those incredible conversions you probably want out of a pop-up.
And it works, y'all. If you want to see it, you can go to the Mediavine blog. Just go take a look. It will be there. It works brilliantly, and it is elegant, and it helps you grow that list. Okay, we have some questions. Sam has some questions for us. I'm going to find her first one so we can put it up here. I understand the more the better as far as grow subscribers, but how many are we shooting for?
Yeah, so there's not just like a magic number I can give you, but yes, more is obviously better. It's really going to be about percentage, right? What percentage of your readers are logged in when they come to your site or have agreed to personalize ads? So when it comes to the number logged in or the number that have agreed to personalize ads, the number we're shooting for is really in that 5 to 10% range in the more short term. Some people would consider that lofty, but that is what we think as Mediavine kind of smaller publishers we can do, right? Big name publishers are probably shooting for higher percentages because they get very aggressive, as I'm sure you've seen as you go to places like the New York Times, where you just have to log in if you want to get access to that, and you even have to pay for a lot of these bigger publishers. But we're hoping we can get about 5 to 10%. And so it's not just going to be, remember, about getting a subscriber, but how do you get them to come back? And that's where that newsletter comes in.
And we love that. Now, let's go into a little bit more complicated. Grow a single sign-on, which means that the more publishers that are using it, the better off we are. Why is that?
So I'm sure you have all experienced this exact same problem as you browse through the web and you have to create an account at every single site you go to. Let's take e-commerce, for example. I'm sure we don't all just shop at just Amazon these days. Hopefully we, use other sites, but it's a little frustrating to have to create an account at every one of these sites. And you're probably like me. If you've seen sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook, whatever your preferred way is, you probably click that, right? So you don't have to create a new account. You don't have to remember a new password. So that is called a single sign-on. So you use one sign-on, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, or in this case, it's going to be Grow. So the idea is when they come to, let's say, Food Fanatic, and they create an account through Grow, but then they end up on the Hollywood Gossip, they can still use that same Grow account despite being two wildly different sites. Granted, those two are owned by Mediavine, but you can bring on any other site, whether it's Sugar Dish Me, Culinary Compass. You could keep going. A lot of these sites that will run Grow may have a different audience, but there will also have some overlap. And the goal is, can we have a user more likely to log in because they already have an account where you click one button? So remember, once you create a Grow account and third-party cookies are gone, you may not necessarily be logged in on another site, but it'll be super easy to log back in. In that same way that when you see that sign in with Google button, you click one button, you know you're in on that site. It'll be the same concept with Grow. They will know that they've created a Grow account, click one button, they're logged back in.
And the good news for those readers is that they can access all of the features that we're continuing to build out. They don't have to be worried. Like if you have exclusive content, it'll be unlocked for them. If they're saving, if they have eventually they have all their favorites done, all of that will keep applying as they go from site to site. So our goal then, this lofty goal that we have, is to enable independent publishers to be able to band together and have this offering for as many, and for Grow to become identifiable to all of these visitors to the website. Oh, Grow, yeah, I know that. And as they go from site to site, they will start to know that they have this great suite of features, this experience that they can create for themselves.
Absolutely. I like to think of it as akin to when we first started Mediavine ad management, whatever it is, 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? We banded together and were able to build what has ultimately become more valuable inventory than the top publishers on the web. And the reason why is because people don't want to necessarily buy an ad against a single smaller publisher because it's just not worth it or it won't hit their minimums. But when we all band together, it's very easy to go to the top advertisers in the world and get them to work with Mediavine because we are now one of the 20 biggest things on the internet combined. And that is the goal of Grow. Can we all combine our efforts again to start taking on what the large publishers may be able to do on their own?
Exactly. And we are working on building that out, but we need your help to do it. So we had a couple of questions in the comments, people saying, is Grow available for non-Mediavine publishers? Could I use Grow on my non-Mediavine sites, even though I have one site with Mediavine? What about all that, Eric? Is it possible?
So we haven't really officially made the announcement yet, but yes, actually the goal of Grow has always been, we want to get ubiquitous on the web, especially amongst independent publishers. And we can't do that if we're only working with Mediavine, right? We have minimum requirements. Some people, choose to monetize with other management companies. And we want to be able to make sure we can work across the entire web. In order to do that, we had to open up Grow. So if you go to you want to post the link? Is it just publishers.grow.me?
Yeah, we have. It's in there. It's in the comments. They can run right over and do it.
Yeah, and you can actually have Grow running before the end of this live if you wanted. It'll only take a few minutes, and hopefully you'll be able to have it and come back to the live. Or no, just keep watching the live and do it after.
Just open in another window. We're saying so many important things. Okay, great question from Tegan. Actually, we got his name from the comments. So where can we see the number of Grow subscribers? And we had somebody else asking about that a little bit higher up.
Yeah, so the total number of people that have signed up for your newsletter through Grow, real easy to get right now, and what we call the Grow Publisher Portal, or even in the Mediavine dashboard if you're still running Grow through the old setup. And that's going to be the same list that you use to download, to upload into your service provider, your email service provider, if you're not using one of our integrations. So that list will show you your total number of subscribers. But what I think everyone really wants to know is how many of those users are coming to my site, or how many users are authenticated, or really how much money is Grow making me at the end of the day. And that kind of stuff is coming to the Grow Publisher Portal very soon. We are making sure that obviously we're working on many different fronts to make sure we get you guys all the integrations you need, all the features you need, and also all the data you need to be able to make these decisions. So that one's coming soon to be able to answer that question of how much is Grow making me, or how many subscribers are logged into my site.
So we are working, for those that are Mediavine publishers that are out there, we are working on a really awesome, robust dashboard system that is similar to what we have for Mediavine that will also be available for Grow. Is that right, Eric?
Yeah, so existing Mediavine publishers can already transition over to the Grow Publisher dashboard very easily. It's just one click when you go into the Grow settings. You'll see it at the very top. We've probably been nagging you to do it if you haven't been logging in. So go convert over, and that's where all new features are being released at this point. So when we unveiled the ConvertKit integration, for example, that was exclusively in the new dashboard. That's not going to be in the old Mediavine dashboard. So if you're an existing Mediavine publisher, you're going to want to move over to this new experience. And if you're new to Grow, well, you're not going to be able to go into the Mediavine dashboard. You're going to be creating directly in that publisher portal.
And so go action item is to go port over to the new Grow Publisher Portal so that you're ready when all of the new features and data starts coming through. Mm-hmm. Now, while we're on the subject of new, we have pushed a lot of new features out for Grow, and we have a lot more coming. Is there anything you can give us in terms of sneak previews that people might be excited about as we move forward?
I think things that I can tease have already been teased before, which is what we call auto mailer, or the ability to be able to send newsletters if you don't already have a newsletter solution. So obviously we'd love for everyone to be able to use things like ConvertKit if they want to create that deeper relationship with their readers and build everything that's involved in running your own newsletter. But we also recognize a ton of publishers don't have the time or resources to do so. So we're building a product called Auto Mailer, which will allow you to basically hop into newsletters no matter who you are. So if you're not able to invest the time, we're hoping we can make it as easy as, just quick toggle to turn on.
Okay, so that's an exciting feature that's coming. We are also working on integrations with other email service providers. Yes?
Yeah, we're actively in beta testing right now with MailChimp and MailerLite. So we obviously already announced the ConvertKit integration that's live today. But if you're using either of those other two, please help us test them. We're hoping to make those live for everyone soon.
Yes, and just a little clarification here for our Mediavine publishers that are wanting to convert, that have been using Grow through their dashboard, that are then wanting to move over to the Grow Publisher Portal. We have some help docs that will help you out with that. It's a little more than one click, but there is, we will get you there. We will get you over to the Grow Publisher Portal, and we will get you going. Okay. Moving away from Grow, since we are almost out of time again, which we always go so fast on here, we have also had quite a year for inaugural year for Mediavine University. And we have a very special class that is going to be available exclusively to Mediavine publishers, taught by none other than our professor, Eric Hochberger. And we will be actually releasing that this week exclusively to Mediavine publishers. So not to worry about that, but it's centered around RPM and it's a perfect time ahead of Q4 to get people doing everything they can to get themselves set up to earn as best as they can, regardless of what the economy is doing. So can you give us a couple of high tips that will be successful for everyone, whoever they're monetizing with here?
Yeah, so I think the Mediavine people already got my favorite tip at the beginning of this, turn on universal player. So I want to give some tips that will apply to exactly everyone. And these are all obviously in the course as well. But the first of which, and you've probably heard us talk about this, your most valuable content. So your most valuable content will depend on your site. So you can just really think of it as, what did the reader come to that page for? So if you're a food blog, it will be the recipe card. If you're a craft or how-to, it'll be the how-to card. If you're having a video, it'll be the video. What is that most valuable piece of content? Whatever it is, put it at the bottom of your post. Don't put it at the top. And the reason why is if they came for just that one thing, if you put it at the very top, chances are most users are going to read it and leave. And then they're not going to see the rest of your content. So you want to push your most valuable content towards the bottom. Second one is going to be word count. And so just increasing the length of your content. So increasing the length of your content has been used by SEO people for a long time. It helps you pick up additional keywords. But something it's also going to do is improve the amount of time that readers spend on your site. So if you can increase your word count or increase your engaging content, so don't just write words for the sake of having more words, again, looking to what Google is always looking for, providing more value to the reader. Can you give them additional information? So leading up to that most valuable content, keep them engaged. Writing longer content is going to allow you to get, again, more readers' time on site, which is going to lead to additional ad impressions and more RPM in your pocket. And then the final one would be shorter sentences, hitting enter more often. So the way we may have been taught in school is no longer correct. It is not the way that people read on the web. So your paragraph should not be 3 to 4 sentences. They should be 1 to 2. Again, I always like to tell people, look at your content on a mobile device. See what 3 to 4 sentence paragraphs look like on a small phone. It's just going to be a wall of text. Hitting enter is going to give more spots for ads to be inserted, but also it's going to be a lot more engaging for your readers. It's going to be a lot easier to read if they're able to consume everything in little short bursts. And they're going to stay on your page longer, and especially important because readers like to skim these days.
Absolutely. Readers love to skim. Those are some great tips that will help not only increase your earnings if you're monetizing with ads, but will help your readers with consume your content as best as they can. Okay. We have a question earlier that I wanted to circle back to as we are closing out. It came in from YouTube. Should we expect an RPM bump in the coming days? So heading into Q4, do we have any thoughts on whether we'll see a traditional pattern? Because typically Q4 is our amazing magic time where the earnings are, where advertisers are spending all the dollars. Will we see something like that?
So short answer is going to be, it depends. And everything is complicated to try to predict these days. But we can say that advertiser spend is always going to increase relative to what it would have been during Q4. So you got to compare what Q4 would have looked like compared to, Q1 under the exact same conditions. And really, I want to remind everyone, when we really think of the most magical time of the year of Q4, it's really actually going to be after Thanksgiving. So beginning with what's known as Black Friday. For those that celebrate Thanksgiving, I know this is a global audience, but it's still going to apply, right? So you want to think of that Black Friday, so all the way up until upcoming to Christmas, basically. Because a lot of shopping ends basically when you can no longer ship things in time for Christmas. So again, for those who don't celebrate, that's okay. They're still the same dates. So really, it's that very short window that we always think of as that most magical time where, the super increased earnings. But September has always looked great as well. October actually sees a little bit of a dip despite being the beginning of Q4 because it's still the beginning of a quarter. But really, again, you're looking for that end of November to towards late December to being incredible. And I still think we're going to see a big boost there. It just won't necessarily be what it would have been during, a more bullish economy.
Fantastic. Okay. So good times likely still coming. But regardless, take these tips. So can we have a couple of action items for Mediavine publishers as we head into Q4, and then maybe an action item for everybody as we head into Q4 that will help both with earnings and with our with audience experience. And then I also wanted to say for Mediavine publishers, stand by. We will be talking to you more in the next couple of days, giving you access to Eric's course. So stand by on that. We're really excited to push that out to everybody and give everyone the opportunity to enroll in InView and to get their income going in a great direction before all that spending starts happening. Okay, Eric, couple of tips for our publishers and a couple of tips for maybe not publishers yet, but potentially someday.
Yeah, so I think most of these tips are actually going to apply to both now. The exception of Universal Player, so that's still a Mediavine exclusive. Mediavine publishers, turn that on right now, as we mentioned earlier on. Turn on things like InView and Skylight in our recommended settings. Those will be the quickest ways to make a dent. But really my advice to Mediavine publishers and all publishers is explore what you think is going to be your biggest posts during Q4. And then you're going to want to optimize your RPM or do the RPM challenges that I believe are publicly available, right?
Content upgrade challenge. Yeah, absolutely. We will actually make sure it's easy to do. We get into that Facebook group.
So upgrade, not just your top content today, but what's going to be your top content in Q4. And you should know this from previous seasons if you've been doing this for a while. If not, just think about that audience and what they're going to be browsing, particularly during those really impressive months of November and December, but even this upcoming September. And make sure that you have this content upgraded, if you will, but you're optimizing all of those posts. So again, go through your top 10 if you can. Keep going to your top 30. Most of your traffic is probably going to come from a small group of posts, and you can make a big impact to your RPM. And but I'm going to obviously, as I say, the one I can't not say is enable Grow and start working through our onboarding series with Grow as well, making sure you're running things like Spotlight Subscribe. Don't just turn Grow on and wonder where the money is. You're going to have to get and exchange value to those readers. So turn on things like inline content recommendations. Make sure you're running the what's next on mobile. And of course, Spotlight Subscribe. And if you want to get a little more aggressive, we even have pop-ups inside of Grow. So making sure you're taking advantage of all those Grow features. And for the power users, exclusive content will significantly increase your newsletter adoption as well as your RPMs.
And we have more educational content coming to help you maximize Grow. That will be coming in the upcoming months. Mediavine publishers, stay tuned. We're going to be sharing an exclusive course with you in the next couple of days. Everyone else, tell your friends, turn on Grow, start playing with those features and seeing what your results are to your email list, to your click-through rate, to your duration, time on page, all of that you will see impacts for. Eric, it has been absolutely wonderful, as always, to have you. Thank you so much for coming and showing Leaf, showing Grow. We had somebody commenting on Leaf. It's Mediavine's mascot. And we will see everybody in September when we come back with Teal Talk.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your summer.